This is a rehab routine for a sports hernia. I've had a sports hernia before, so I've had to go through these exercises. And so, sports hernia is not it's not a bulging hernia. This is more of a tear around the hip and where the hip and the core meet, hip and the torso muscles meet. So the principle here is that you need to strengthen the range of motion where your knee is bent in above 90 degrees. Your hip is bending above 90 degrees. It's usually the case that this is there's weakness in this motion, and it could be coming from tightness in your glutes. Likely it's tightness in your glutes. And it's also weakness. So if I have a sports hernia on my right side, it may be the case that the back side of my leg is on the opposite side is weak. So that's the principle in the training. And so when you just are diagnosed with this injury, then which you can pretty much self-diagnose. If you go down and you can, in the sit-up motion is painful, and there's no bulge, there's no visible or palpable bulge in your hip, then this may be what you are suffering from. So the first thing is, and you want to take a proactive approach, in my opinion, in addressing this injury. Resting, it's a nagging injury, it sucks. But if you're proactive, you can speed up the recovery time. So for the first couple of weeks, you really want to minimize, and again, pain is your guide. If the motions are painful, skip them. Don't want to do painful motions, especially when you're fresh off the injury. So for the first 2 weeks for training, you want to stay off of you do not want to load that side of your hip. You're going to address the musculature around the hip, but not directly impacting the hip. So we're going to begin the routine with a hip bridge. But for this particular bridge, you want to really tuck your opposite knee in. So you got one leg down, the other knee is going to be tucked in. I've seen guys that they'll put a tennis ball up at their chest, and you have to try to keep the tennis ball tucked to your chest. I don't have a tennis ball at the moment, but I'll imagine that I do. And then I'm just going to lift up, hold for 5 seconds, and then come back down, and I can do about 5 repetitions of this. I'll do my other leg, and notice that I'm not getting very high. It's not a big range of motion. I'm going to let my head relax. Not a big range of motion, just lifting your leg off the ground a little bit. The second one is going to be a side plank, but you're going to keep your knee down on the side plank to make it a lower impact exercise. And then just push your hips forward and push them up. Let your head relax back. And for all of these exercises, you're going to be doing 5-second holds, or just a 10-second hold. So for my side plank, I'll just do a 10-second hold each side. And to start, go through it 2 times the first time you do it, or the first couple times you do it, and then you can add sets as you go. The third one is going to be we call them a bird dog. So you're going to be in this prone position, and then with the opposite arm and leg, I'm just going to kick back and reach out. This one I'll hold for 5 seconds, and then bring it back in. I want my spine to stay in a neutral position while I do this, and you can't see my heel, but I'm going to kick back, leading with my heel on this exercise. We do both sides. The fourth one is going to be a psoas hold from a supine position. I've got one of these bands. This is actually even a little too thick for what I would want to rehab the sports hernia injury. But any band will work, and I want to pull my knee in if I can, if it's pain-free, further than 90 degrees. And then I'm going to extend the other leg so that now I have resistance. I'm working the hip with resistance, and this one I'll hold 10 seconds each side. And while you're doing this exercise, really try to feel like you're working the middle of your abdomen, not just your lower abdomen and not just right at your hip flexor. Try to control this motion with the middle of your abdomen. Next, I've got a side lying or supine adduction squeeze. So I've got this ball here, and I think you'd actually want a smaller ball than this for this exercise, but I can make this work. And I'm just gonna squeeze the ball in between my legs, just working the inner thigh and squeezing the ball. And if I can, I want to be working above parallel, so more than a 90-degree bend at the hip, if I can do it pain-free. And next, you'll stand up and you'll just do some squats. Now to modify, I can use a bench behind me for this, and I'll just do a sit to stand. But even if I have the bench or not, I still want to think about reaching my hips back as I initiate the descent. Reach your hips back, and then the knees bend. I'll tap down, sit all the way down, and then come up. And watch my knees. I'll change my angle, and I'll do it without the bench on this next rep. I'm pushing my hips back, and my knees, they cannot cave in. This is the problem. We're too strong on the adduction, not strong enough on the abduction. And I'll try to go down really low, feel like I'm stretching my ankles and my hips, and control on the way up. From this angle, you can watch my knees again. Hips go back, knees stay back. See the torso angle. The angle of my torso is forward a little bit. I'm going to go nice and low into it if I can, and come up. And alternatively, I can hold on to a countertop, or I can hold on to a broomstick. And this way I can go down all the way as low as I can, but have some assistance coming down and out of the bottom. The last exercise, so there's two more exercises. This one is going to be a single leg, straight leg deadlift motion. So I'll go through the motion here. This one I really want to lock my knee out straight. I want my knee to stay straight on this one. And then I'll just go down under control, and I'll come back up. By the way, these are going to be 10 reps for the squat, and this is going to be 5 reps each side. Let's go from a different angle here. And watch, my up leg has to be active. Part of this exercise is flexing your leg that is up. And in fact, that's the first thing I'll do. Before I start bending at the waist here, I'm going to flex my hip up here, and then I will begin to descend and continually raising that other leg as I go down. And notice I'm not rolling my spine or rounding my spine. Again, you have to keep a neutral spinal position for that exercise. And then the last one is a lateral band walk, where I can put the band around my ankles. And again, this band is not perfect for this exercise, but it'll be okay. I want to set up so that my knees are tracking out. The balls of my feet will be down while my heels are up. And then I'm just going to work to step out and step back together. Step out and step together. And I can just go side to side, working both sides. And for this one, you can do, we'll say 10 steps each side, total. Try to look at the angle from this side. Hips are back, angled torso. And then the band, don't let it snap your feet back together. Try to have control on that part of the motion. Next, I've got a physio ball rollout. So I've got one of these physio balls, and if you don't have something like this, you can alternatively lock your hands out and then back in. But the idea is either way that I'm going to keep my knees down, and then I'm going to walk. I'm going to have my torso and my hips extend, and then I'll come back in. And just like with the band hold, I want to try to focus on my mid and even my upper abdomens and try to have them controlling the motion and taking some of the pressure off of your hips. You don't have to go too far at the rehab